Welcome to Keep Hustling, where we are going past the why to get to the how. I'm your host, the always hustling Aaron Gordon, aka NY Risk Advisor, aka Mr. Keep Hustling. In this podcast, we will be diving deep into the professional and personal successes of our guests to find out how they hustled through the most difficult times in their life and their development to achieve the success they've gotten to today. So buckle up for what hopes to be an amazing ride. And of course, now and always, keep hustling. Welcome to Keep Hustling with my guest, Steven Turnbull. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me, Aaron. Love what you're doing, and really honored to be here. Thanks for having me.
Well, you actually were. I owe you another debt of gratitude because being on your podcast was part of the inspiration for me starting this. So thank you for pushing me to do this. And more importantly, to all the listeners out there who think that I'm just a snob who only talks to people in New York City and the immediate surrounding area. Steven is from upstate New York, a lot of snow, but no snow days. Here we have a little bit of snow and lots of snow days. So we here at the Keep Hustling podcast, we are non-discriminatory of New York. We know obviously where the better parts of New York are, but we're willing to associate and communicate and interact and learn from people, even from the places of New York that we would never travel to.
Yes, there is more of us up here, people. There is more of us up here. Anybody from upstate travels around. Anytime you say New York, they're asking what borough you're from. So it is such an interesting thing as I've kind of started traveling more just with business and more in the industry of meeting people in general. They're like, so what part of the city are you from? No, gotta go. I mean, even the relationship with Sean, and he's in Long Island, what he refers to as upstate is interesting compared to what I
think he and I have the same definition. My definition is anything that's past Woodbury Commons.
Yep.
I'm not sure if you know where Woodbury Commons is, but you're probably going to say that's like real south.
Right. Way downstate. Yeah.
Way downstate. Like you're an hour south of Monticello at that point.
Yep.
So how do you define upstate?
I would say like Albany. Albany's probably upstate for me because, and it's interesting because where I'm at is really central New York, but it's easier to call it upstate. And we have a camp up on the St. Lawrence River that is really upstate on the Canadian border. So, and that takes 2.5 hours to get up there from my house. So the way that I look at it is we're central New York, where I'm at. Camp is upstate, Adirondacks upstate. You guys are downstate, but it's different.
Hold on a second. You're expecting me and Sean. Sean, this is a shout out to you. We got to get you on the KHP. Sean, I know you're going to be listening to this episode, and if you haven't recorded yet when this launches, we're getting you on the Keep Hustling podcast. But are you suggesting that we should change, and this is totally a digression, so I apologize for those people who came here for hustle. We'll get to that. But are you suggesting that we should refer to where you're from as not upstate?
Yes, it's absolutely what I'm suggesting.
Okay.
Yeah, central
Anyway,
New York.
This has been another great episode of the... I'm just kidding.
That's it.
All right. But I really want to get into community and kind of how your hustle, because I'm inspired by it. I know that you started your own business and you're killing it. And not just because I hope everyone who's watching on YouTube or seeing the content here, guys, check it out. It's orange. And probably for him, it's for the Mets. For me, it's for the Knicks, like whatever. It's all good. Or the Syracuse Orangemen, where my mother's from. By the way, my mother's from upstate. So like, yep. Syracuse, is that upstate enough for you?
Syracuse is central New York. Syracuse is only 40 minutes west of me.
Dude, it's so. My mother would say that she's from upstate, okay?
Yeah.
And she knows a lot more than you, and that's all we have to say about that.
Oh, I'm sure. 100%.
That's it. If my mother says it, it goes. So I want to jump right in, or maybe after that digression, we could jump right in. Tell us, what do we need to know about your upbringing that led you to your hustle, starting your business, where you are today, kind of where you're at? Our listeners are not just insurance people, so I know your story in the insurance industry, but kind of your overall story is super inspirational to me. So,
yeah. So I grew up in an entrepreneurial family, specifically insurance. So, the name of my agency is T5 Insurance. It stands for my last name, Turnbull, and 5th generation agent in my family. So my father and uncle have an agency in town that I joined in 2016 when I graduated from college. I worked there for 6.5 years and started T5 in May of 22. Obviously, there's a lot more there that we can feel free to get into whatever we want to. But when it comes to my upbringing, it was always being around the office, always seeing my dad's hustle, always understanding that and kind of what he was building for our family. And he was the 4th generation of that agency. And so, kind of seeing him work through the transition. I don't really remember my grandfather much. He was young or I was young when he passed away. But, I grew up in the office. I grew up, snow days, sick days. If I didn't feel good enough to go to school, I was going to the office with dad. And I appreciated that and kind of, grew up around that environment. So when I graduated high school, I went to a local community college. It was interesting is when I went to the local community college, everybody says, oh, you probably, worked part-time in the agency. I never worked in the agency for whatever reason until I was 100% in full-time. So I went to community college locally.
Except for the slave labor when you were sick.
Correct. Yes.
Okay,
except for
except for the slave labor.
Yeah. Except for the slave labor filing whenever I was sick for hours on end. But so I went to the community college. I went to Rochester, New York, which I would call Western New York. And I went to St. John Fisher College for 2 years to finish my bachelor's, and then came home. I graduated on a Friday and started in the agency on Monday. So I've always knew that insurance was the plan, but it's a funny thing when we talk about the plan and the roadmap. Some things don't always go the way that you maybe envision them to, which is how T5 is here, and it's all been good. If there's something that I've definitely learned over the last 19 months of being a business owner is that the experiences are what craft, who you are. And if there wasn't the experiences of leaving a family business and some of the emotional things that came with that, I wouldn't be developed into the person that I am today and the person that I will be. So it's been a hell of a ride.
So I want to get back into that, but I also just want to zero in on something that you said, which I think is so true, but I think people often misunderstand or misconstrue in our positions being multi-generation insurance. And that is, I think that everybody says it's the default, right? Like insurance has been for generations a father, son, nephew, uncle, however you want, niece, whatever, daughter, however you want to look at it.
Yeah.
Industry. And I think that a lot of people say, well, that's the easy route or that's just what you know. But I think one of the things that I think you're touching on, but correct me if I'm wrong or just, expand on this, because it was obviously something for me, was as you mature and you are not just photocopying your siblings' faces on your father's copy machine and running around his office like a delinquent, which is what we did. I don't know what you did, but when a person thinks about the career that they want to have, when you give up being a sports athlete, a professional athlete, and then you give up being an actor, and then you give up like being a professional poker player, you kind of go through like that, or a fireman when you're little, you realize that this industry gave you what you had. And so you look back at your childhood, I'm assuming, and you're like, I saw what my father built. Obviously, that was fourth generation, but it was like, it's an honest craft. It's a decent living. Maybe not billionaires with private jets, but like decent living, relatively recession proof. And like, that's what we want to emulate as husbands, fathers, and business owners. So I feel like it's not necessarily just the safe route, but it's also like when a person matures and thinks about what they want for a career, it's almost like it's a no-brainer because of how good you saw it from the inside.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it was interesting with my time at the family business. I was never pressured into at all. I mean, I remember a couple of weeks before graduating I called home to my dad and like, so I'm going to be working, right? Like this is the we had like that kind of conversation, and up until that point, there was never all right, well, when you get, when you come back, you're working at the business. And, with that being said, I think my dad respected that and didn't want to like pressure me to do that. But to answer kind of the first part of your question there, or just comment on it was interesting because I didn't realize really the extent of the opportunity that this industry or this business can give somebody until I was like in it and saw it. And that's what obviously led me to T5 and doing my own thing, which we can get into. But it took being in there, being involved, and then you touched on, well, you just joined the family business. I think that's a great conversation the two of us can have, because you did it, the generational business, and creating your own brand. And I remember going home from college and people are like, oh, how nice, you get to just go in and work for dad, and you're just gonna, but my dad was very clear. Here's your desk, here's the phone, go out, go to the chambers, go to this, become your own self, and bring business in. And that's what we did. That's what I did at the 6.5 years that I was there. So I think
they didn't let me touch the phone in the beginning. They said you're going to sit and learn.
Yeah, well, I touched the phone. Yeah.
I was only allowed to answer the phone if it rang past everybody else. for like the first, but I was there in summers in high school and college, so it wasn't really the
Right.
time I came full time. But I agree with you, and I think that I also think that I know I was not pressured to come into the business. The only pressure I ever had was I've never been so scared as the day I took my licensing test, because I was like, if I don't pass this first time, they're not going to fire me. But like this,
Yeah.
my siblings, forget about my parents. This will never, and I'm the only one who's in the business, but like anyone in Gordon family folklore will never live down the fact that the child of two, my mother also works in the business, lifetime insurance agents and agency owners couldn't figure out how to pass the test the first time. So
Yeah.
but I did. But I passed. So
So did I. First time. Nobody asked what the score was, but I passed it.
You know what? I just remember when I hit the submit button and they were like, "Are you sure?" And I'm thinking, "No, I'm not sure about anything right now."
No, let me go back.
Let me go back. I want to. So you started working in the family agency.
Mhm.
You saw that hustle. Your father and your uncle were there, and let me get it from this angle. What did you want to be different or start different when you started T5? What were you saying? And not that they did anything wrong. I'm not.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
No.
My parents were the same way. My parents said, "This is how we do it," and eventually, we worked through that. And I was able to create a little bit of a brand, but it's still the same,
Yeah.
But it was like I had a vision. Nothing like crazy, illegal skydiving,
Sure.
crazy stuff. But it was like when you said, "I want to go out on my own," what was your vision, and what inspired you to do that?
Okay, so the vision would be the frustration of what I felt over the last, I'd say, 2 years of being at the family business, of not being able to do or implement or try to, do business the way that I wanted to do it. And to paint the picture for kind of where I was at when I joined in 2016, it was a small office, my father, uncle, and 3 customer service reps when I joined in 2016. The newest employee, and now also, let me frame it this way. I was 22 years old when I joined. The newest employee had just celebrated their 21st anniversary at the agency.
Can I just interrupt you for 1 second?
Yeah.
I could have written the story.
Yeah.
Exactly the same.
It's crazy. I've learned how many connections I've started to make over the last 2 years in our great industry. How many people have this similar story like this?
Well, what's crazy about that is like, and then you realize that these are the people that like when you photocopied your face, right? You were 22. They were there for 21 years. That means when you were 4 and unplugging their phones or doing whatever, distracting them from working or stealing their rubber bands, like these are the staff. But that's it for another time.
Yeah. So there was obviously the challenges that we all know that come with that, turning the ship around, trying to do, updated things. Like, why does 4 tabs on our website say under construction? How do we talk about that? And like, all these different things. And I found there's really no way to tell the story without being completely candid. I'm fine being candid. My father and uncle were 50-50 partners. And I learned as I got more serious and into the business and got more involved that the partnership was not just a partnership, it was just family. And we're in this together and we're going to all do this together. But I noticed that, my dad was rowing the boat a little harder. And I started to try to be vocal about that and try to make some changes. And that's what led for me saying, I think I got to do this on my own. So it was a combination of frustrations, and like you said, there's no right way or wrong way of doing business. But what has been, as coming up on 2 years of T5, what has been incredible is how different I'm building everything than it was at my family agency. And again, no right or wrong. There's just different ways to do it. Right.
Is that a tech? I assume that you're referring a lot to technology and processes.
Yeah, I would.
But I'm saying, I assume that the vision, meaning what you saw there of a business that lasted into its 5th generation, the ethos or the community involvement or the things like that, I assume is what inspired you not to leave the industry, but to do it your way.
Yeah, 100%. Yep, 100%.
Okay, we've made a few people cry. You're not going to cry, but I got to ask you, what was that like?
It was the worst day. It was the worst. It was the worst thing I've ever experienced. I'll be completely honest. It was the night that I left, sitting across the conference room table, telling my dad, I can't do this anymore. I'm going to do my own thing, was the hardest thing I've ever been through. And I think it'll probably be the hardest thing I've ever been through. He was emotional. I was emotional. Just blank stare. He understood, and I think there was a lot. there was a lot that he just didn't want to. He expected it. We had the conversation that it was coming if X, Y, and Z didn't happen. But I think there was just a lot of him not wanting to believe that it would happen. And, when you're partners, you can only do so much. You can't do 100% of things. You can't change 100%. You can't make another partner do something. And again, being completely transparent, it was the hardest day of my life. And it still is.
Was your uncle there?
Yeah. Yep.
So you sat in the conference room with the two of them?
Sat in the conference room with the two of them. I said, it's been years at this point of trying to do different things and get different things. And I felt ignored with stuff. And I was going to do my own thing. And it didn't end well. And I unfortunately don't have a relationship with most of my family anymore over this. And the good thing is I have a relationship, with my parents and my sister and my close family and stuff like that. But things have definitely been different. I'm not going to sit here and lie. And I think that's important because, there may be somebody that's listening to this in that same situation. And I wish that when I was in the situation, I kind of had that. That's what I love about podcasting. I love about what you're doing, about the stories you're sharing, because it's the relatability, of anybody that might be in that situation listening.
No, 100%. And thank you for sharing that. But it's like, I don't think that there's anybody who's very successful who doesn't have a moment where they're like, that was the hardest thing ever.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, let's take health aside, just for, let's take personal health and immediate relative health aside from being the hardest thing ever. But like, we see the success. Like, I know that 25 years from now, you and I will not be in upstate New York or central New York or any place like that. We'll either be hopefully somewhere warm on a vacation, like semi-retired, doing what everyone else does in this industry, which is say they never retire, but play golf in Florida for a couple months a year with an alcoholic beverage. And like, the story of T5 will be there. And so many people will not know at that moment, looking at Steven in that moment. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, for sure.
Wow, I know there's a story, but like, it started from such a difficult, and I think it's incredible to me that you didn't take the easy route. And there were two easy routes: stay or do something else.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, it was.
That's incredible to me. It's incredible to me that I know someone who literally said, this is my dream, this is my vision, and this is how I'm going to get there. And literally took the hardest of the three options.
Yeah. I just kept reminding myself there's a reason the flight attendants tell you to put your mask on before helping others. And it got to a point where, I left the agency and started Scratch 4 months before my wedding. And so
I'm not. This is not a couples therapy podcast. We are not getting into that. We are not getting into that.
Well, my point is there could have always been after the wedding. And I got that. A ton of my friends, why are you doing this before the wedding? Why are you, there's always another time to do it. Wait till after the wedding, wait till you have children, wait till you have a family, wait. And I just looked at him like, there's no time, but now I have to do it. So, to your point of actually doing it and the two other options, it was a good, probably year and a half of back and forth in my mind of, am I going to do this? What's it going to look like? What will be the consequences? How are you going to navigate through that? And a lot of those things aren't anything that you can really plan for until you just do it. Right.
Was there anything positive that you didn't predict happening? I mean, building a business is a positive, right? Your business has grown. But I think you could have predicted that in your model. But like something crazy like, your sister, you got closer, your sister's closer. So I don't know, something like that.
Yeah. I would say just the positive experience is constantly reminding myself in little situations that these situations, these small wins, whatever it would be, would not have happened if I didn't do what I did. And it's just constantly looking at it as the experience that I've been through. Because the first thing I got is, when I left, oh, this is why I left. Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Instead of what an opportunity. What an opportunity. At 27, when I left and started from scratch, what I had learned up to that point and the lessons that I've gone through to be able to take it to the next level, to take it to my new business, to take it to my future children, my future family, my future team, all of these things. What a fantastic opportunity from the trials and tribulations that I've been through at that point.
100%. And that's, so my next question usually is what has been the most pivotal moment in your career? I'm guessing was that moment in the conference room?
I would say that moment was the next morning. I can tell you, I will never forget the next morning. I'm an early riser. And like I said, it didn't go with the other party as well as I thought. So I sat down for that meeting on a Monday, and my plan was to give him a month, just say, hey, Steven's doing something else, and this is it. I was packed up and no longer employed there within 2 hours. And so I woke up the next day.
Really like that.
Like that. I woke up and it was nothing to do with my father, but I woke up the next day, and like I said, I'm an early riser. I usually try to go to the gym early, so I'm usually up about 4:30, 5 o'clock. And that next morning I slept until 7:30, and my wife is leaving for work, and she looked at me and said, "What are you going to do today?" And then I said, "I'm going to figure it out." That is the pivotal moment up until my point now, because that's when I said, I did it. It's done. Now I got to figure it out. That's when the phone calls to carriers started going for appointments. That's when the marketing plan started going. That's when, the legal stuff and the state licenses and all that fun stuff started, was that day. And I can remember it. I'll remember that day forever. Like I was there.
Okay. First of all, I'm happy you didn't go to the gym the next day, because I would have thought that you were a complete psychopath. So I'm glad that you didn't wake up at 4 a.m. and go to the gym the next day, because I would have been very, very, very concerned about you as a person and a friend. So I'm glad.
I didn't really sleep. I didn't really sleep much that
That's
day.
That's why I'm just making it like, yeah. And then it was horrible. And then I got up the next day, David Goggins style.
Yeah, right.
Fourth, and I said, you know what?
If I'm not going to
go to the office, I'm going to run until I have an office. So I'm glad that at least I know that you have a soul. So what did you do? When you got up, you put your feet right. Your wife went to work. You were out, right? And like you're sitting. I imagine this is what this podcast is about. You're sitting at the table. I would imagine with a cup of coffee. What is going through your mind?
Holy crap! Here we go.
Here we go. Game time, or what did I just do?
Here we go. Game time. I didn't look back. I still haven't looked back. I can't really answer why that is. I think the just experiences and the small wins that I've had in my journey of starting everything, there's been plenty that has reminded me that I did the right thing. So it was and always has been, here we go, game time. And that's what I did. We have this little front porch room that was closed off as a 3-season porch. And the prior
what's a 3-season porch? I'm from New York City.
Okay, so you can't technically use it in the winter because there's not heat in it. So you could use it summer, fall, spring, but you don't really want to use it in the winter. We have
you heard it here, folks. First, a 3-season porch. This is where we're at.
Yeah. So the prior owner was a contractor, so he had large shelving around there. So I set up my computer on the top of the shelving and had 2 TV trays underneath it where my mouse and my keyboard went. And I had that set up for probably 2.5, 3 months. And then I got an office space and it's brick by brick. And I think a lot of it up until now, coming on our 20th month, has been, as entrepreneurs and high performers and hustlers that we are, you're always in our head. Are we doing enough? Are we doing good enough? Are we going fast enough? Are all these things? And it's like, you got to remind ourselves that I'm off of the TV trays, right? I have a new office space that I'm in right now. I'm on this podcast with you, like all these things that have, your brick by brick mentality to just keep moving forward. So.
And I think the other thing that's super important there is you didn't say, as entrepreneurs, we look and we say that did I make a mistake?
Yeah.
We always wonder if we're doing real keep hustling. Really what this is about is not saying I made a mistake, because one of the trademarks of this podcast is if you honestly keep moving forward, you never make a mistake. There are opportunities to learn, which is what you're saying. But you said, you look back and you say, yeah, I'm not on two TV trays in the 3-season porch. I guess thankfully a winner didn't come before you got out of there.
It was May. It was May when I left, so I had several months to figure it out.
That was part of the plan. Was I had a 3-season porch, so I got to make sure that I can utilize the season.
You got me. That's why I really had to do it when I did. That's why I couldn't wait till after the wedding.
The wedding, exactly. The wedding would have messed with the seasons. But it's really like, as an entrepreneur, and especially the young entrepreneurs that are listening right now, or if you're contemplating making a big move for your career, and it doesn't have to be starting something, having but it's just that hustle. It's so important, I feel like, not to say, did I make the right decision? Because there's no room for that. It's, did I do enough, or am I doing this the right way? But if as you were saying that, I was thinking my favorite line that my rabbi always tells us, his young congregation, over and over again, not to get too spiritual or religious here, but I think you'll appreciate this, is the way you know if you're doing something the right way and for the right reasons is when you see that you have that level of success and growth, and God grants you that privilege of continuing that. Meaning, if you did it for the wrong reasons, there would be a big X that somehow hit you in the face. But it's like, or not. But it's like, if you are scared about doing something and you want it, and you look back 20 months and you say, did I do it for the right reasons? Did I do it the right way? And you see those bricks along the way. That's the verification badge.
Yeah.
That 20 months ago you did it for the right reasons in the right way. It doesn't mean everything is perfect. It doesn't mean there were no failures.
Right.
But it's like, and I think that's a great life lesson. But I think that you're right. It's like, are we doing enough? But not, are we doing the right thing?
And you need that perspective, man. I mean, it's me and a virtual assistant, and so I work in an office by myself all day long. And the biggest challenge for me has been not having like the team camaraderie, like not having, that staff member to attack that big account together.
80-year-old Mary.
Yes,
Miss 80-year-old Mary.
Yes, I do at this point. Yeah,
really.
But
it's so funny. I feel the same way. It's so funny.
But
some days I'm like, yeah.
It's just that shift of perspective of like, these are all happening for a reason, and these are just lessons. And it's like, what I replay in my head is that 2.5 minute Jocko video. Good. Right? Didn't get that big account. Good. Didn't get this. What did those failures, whatever you want to call, fall downs, what did those teach you to move on and take to the next thing? And so my experience at the family agency, although it didn't pan out the way it was supposed to, when everybody saw the fifth generation coming, and that those experiences have taught me what I can do better over here to be a better person, a better husband, a better father, a better business owner, all those things. And so it's like, just shifting that perspective can make a huge difference.
100%. And by the way, I also think that there's no coincidence that you went with T5.
Yeah.
Right. Like, it's whatever the challenging experience. I don't even say negative, but the challenge experiences you had, or the experience at the end there were. It's still part of your DNA and the brickwork in your own self.
Yeah.
That led you to start T5. And I think that's, oh my gosh, I just trying. Okay. Before you walked into the conference room, I want to go to that moment, because I usually like drive back and we already got to the bed thing. So sorry, I'm just going to drive into this because this is what the hustlers need to hear. They were in there first, or you weren't first?
Oh, I was in there first. I initiated every meeting.
But you were sitting in the conference room waiting for the two of them to enter.
Yeah. Yeah.
What was going through your mind? Take us there.
I would say at that point, what was going through my mind was like, is this the right thing to do? But then I have, I'm a very visual person. So I have every meeting that I had where I knew there's going to be controversy, or knew there might be back and forth, whatever you want to call it. I had my laptop in front of me with bullet points. These are what you're hitting, and these are the reasons why you're here right now doing what you're doing. And so I had that in front of me. So and like I said, it didn't end well with the other party. And that was kind of verification for me of just like, okay, 100%. 6.5 years, you've poured your life into this, and I don't want to get too far into this side of it, but I recreated kind of the birth of the agency, of being digital and being community and all of that, because it was kind of just static quo before I got there. So it was like I put so much into it, and there was no appreciation because I'm the bad guy, because I wanted to go do something myself, because you're not allowing me to do what I'm trying to do. And let me just paint the picture of, there was plenty give and take, right? This was 2 years of a conversation that finally came to a head. So I was sitting there
100%. But I think there's another thing there, which is, and it just doesn't have to be in this circumstance, but I think that a lot of times, I assume when you walked out that day, as you said, you went home, you didn't sleep a lot the night because there was a lot of emotion. But I think what you're saying is, but what you were feeling was validated, meaning your theories and your reasons, it sucked, right? And what was going on was that. But like, if you took the emotion out of it, of not sleeping, and again, if you didn't have a sleepless night, or I'm not sure I could be friends with the robots. I'm being, you know what I'm saying? But it's like, but when that happens, you open the laptop up when you get home, or whatever, you think about those bullet points, and you're like, that was right. And therefore, that's why this is right.
And I'll be honest, I still have those situations today. So I had a Google Doc full of all of our meeting notes, and I'll sometimes accidentally, because all my processes and procedures are in Google Docs, so I'll sometimes accidentally trip across them and I'll get curious, oh, look at this. Oh, April 2018, this was the meeting and this is what you were trying to do. This is, and for me, none of it was ownership, more money, anything. It was really, what's the plan? Steven's been here for 6.5 years. He's proved himself. He's bringing business. What does the plan look like? And nobody wanted to have that conversation. So looking back at that, and even today with, the difficulties in the family relationships that I have, because it's so easy because I'm the bad guy as far as the family, right? I shook the tree and I went the other direction. How dare I? Even today, I still need some of that. Oh, okay. Some of that verification, some of that to push me through that day, that week, whatever it is.
I can say this with 100% confidence, and I am not like some old guru. I have 5 kids. My oldest is 12, my youngest is 1. I wish I would have had some of those notes, not necessarily of conflict, but like, what? Please don't delete the Google Drive.
No, it's the best thing I ever did.
I'm actually shocked that you don't have some of those bullet points like on the wall behind you. Some of your like favorite bullet points of like things you wanted to build.
Well, I did have several of them bullet pointed on my phone background for about 4 months after I left. That's true.
So I know the personality. I got you. So it's like, but it's like when T5 is 25 or 30, or when it might be T6 coming up the ranks, it's going to be like, what's going to be awesome? What's going to be awesome? When T6 is around, okay? And T6, whoever that is, says, because I don't know how it worked with you, but this is how these conversations always worked. I always asked to meet with my parents after work because I felt like we would always be the latest, and it wasn't a good look with people in the office. 501. Hey, you have a few minutes after work today. When T6 comes through with that, I hope we'll still be friends then. Like, open up the bullet points and be like, which one of these do you think they're coming at me for?
Yeah.
And by the way,
man, I've never looked at it that way. I like that.
What I'm saying? Wouldn't that be like, what's the vision? And you're like, you know what? I actually prepped for this because when I was thinking about the vision, and maybe my vision needs to change or whatever it is, but it's like imagine, I mean, like literally, like, wouldn't it be cool if like one of the bullet points is like show me your paper. Probably paper will be like an Oculus headset where they're like have their bullet points, but it's like, and that I really feel that at that moment I hope we do another episode of the Keep Hustling podcast. I hope the Keep Hustling podcast is still around, and that is, I think, will be the ultimate testament to your hustle. But your hustle is so inspirational. The in the conference room the next day, and looking back at it 20 months later, everyone should follow your socials because you have a sick office. None of us are ever going to visit you upstate, any of the listeners, unless they're in upstate, no matter where they are around the world. So our only view into T5 is what you post on social media. So the virtual, so make it. So I really appreciate when you save those, when you share those things. I'm inspired by you. I'm inspired by your wife. I know our listeners will be, your journey and all that. So really, 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 from the bottom of my heart and on behalf of the listeners, thank you for being here and sharing.
Thank you. I need to add one thing, and thank you again for doing this, but just thank you for being you. I had a Zoom call with you, if you remember, about a week after I left, and I'll never forget that. And my computer was on the coffee or the tray tables, and I'll never forget that. You reached out to me over Instagram and said, "Hey, I saw you post you left the family business. I can feel some of your emotions, and let's connect." And when we connected, your first thing, I'll never forget this, was just like, "Are you okay?" And I didn't know you from Adam, and I really appreciate that, and that's something I'll never forget, Aaron. So I really appreciate having me on. I appreciate your friendship, and I can't wait to do that episode in 25 years.
I'm glad. Let me just say this, okay? You'll come to the studio in New York. Hopefully, then we'll have a studio in New York. New York, the definition of New York, one of the 5 boroughs. Watch, I'm going to end up like living in upstate. I'm going to be like, you're going to like come to Buffalo to my studio. That's never going to happen, ever, 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 ever. This is so great. We should do this more often. We have a closing tradition on this podcast where we ask our guests, and I know there's going to be fire coming from you right now.
Been ready for this.
To leave us and our listeners with their favorite all-time or current motivational or inspirational quote and what it means to them. So the floor is yours, and thank you again for being here.
Never be limited by other people's limited imaginations. Never be limited by other people's limited imaginations. When you're making a big jump of starting a business and leaving a family agency, there's a lot of people that are going to think you're crazy. There's a lot of people that are going to think you're doing the wrong thing. And although they may not be limited in the sense of right or wrong, they're going to be limited from what you can do. And so it's good to ask friends for advice. It's good to get outside noise and get outside advice in different things. But at the end of the day, if it's something in your gut that you know you need to do, don't be limited by those limited imaginations.
I love that. And no better. And I know you're not limited. And I know that gosh, I can't wait to be on your plane one day. That's all I got to say about that. So Steven Turnbull, thank you for being here. I really, really appreciate it.
Thank you, Aaron. I appreciate it.
This has been another episode of Keep Hustling. Remember, do well by doing good. And of course, and always, keep hustling. All right, hustlers, that brings us to the end of another fantastic episode. Thank you for listening. Be sure to subscribe to our podcast so you never miss an episode. If you have any suggestions, comments, or even just want to say hello, please feel free to reach out to us on all social media platforms. We are Keep Hustling Pod. Until next time, stay curious, stay hungry, and keep hustling.